School taught you how to stay broke, not by accident, on purpose. You spent 12 years plus college learning trigonometry, memorizing dates, writing essays about books you'll never read again. But nobody taught you about compound interest. Nobody explained tax strategies. Nobody showed you how to negotiate salary or start a business. You learned obedience, compliance, how to trade your time for grades, then trade your time for money. The system trained you to be an employee who shows up on time, doesn't ask questions, and feels grateful for any paycheck. And it worked. You followed every rule, got good grades, went to college, did everything right, and you're still struggling financially. That's not a coincidence. The school system was designed during the Industrial Revolution to create factory workers, compliant, predictable, replaceable. It was never designed to create wealth. School still looks like a factory today for a reason. The bells, the rows, the standardized tests, the age-based batches, none of that exists because it's the best way for humans to learn. It exists because it's the best way to manage large groups efficiently. You were never the priority. The system was. Your curiosity had to be controlled so the schedule could run on time. Your questions had to be limited so the lesson plan could be completed. Your energy had to be contained so the classroom stayed quiet. All of that felt normal because every other kid was living the same reality. But what it really did was train you to shrink yourself to fit the system, instead of expecting systems to be built around human potential. The modern school system wasn't created by educators. It was created by industrialists who needed workers. Factory owners needed people who would show up on time, follow instructions without question, and not complain. But most people were farmers, tradespeople, entrepreneurs, self-directed, used to controlling their own time. That didn't work for factory life. So industrialists like Rockefeller and Carnegie funded compulsory public education, not to liberate you, to standardize you. The school model was based on Prussian military training, rigid schedules, bells controlling movement, students in rows facing authority. Obedience was the goal. School trained your brain to follow someone else's rules, to wait for permission, to seek external validation instead of trusting your judgment. Perfect training for a factory worker. Terrible training for building wealth. So what did school actually teach you? School taught you that there's always one right answer and someone else knows it. Your job is to figure out what they want and give it to them. This trains your brain to seek external approval. Deadly for entrepreneurship. School taught you to wait for permission. Raise your hand. Ask to speak. Ask to leave. Years of practice telling your nervous system you don't have autonomy. Now you're an adult asking your boss for permission to take vacation. Waiting for someone to tell you it's okay to start that business. School taught you that time is segmented by someone else. Bells ring, you move. Perfect training for a 9-to-5. And school taught you to avoid mistakes at all costs. Wrong answers lose points. Failure means bad grades. But wealth is built through experimentation, iteration, failing fast. School wired your brain to see failure as shame, not as data. Now here's where it gets deliberate. School had your entire childhood to teach you about money, but somehow financial literacy never made the curriculum. You learned about mitochondria and iambic pentameter. You can recite the quadratic formula, but you graduated without knowing what a credit score is or how interest compounds. That's not an accident. Financial education threatens the system. If you understood that student loans compound interest while you're in school, you might not take out $100,000 in debt. If you learned about opportunity cost, you might question whether college is the best investment. The system needs you financially illiterate just enough to make decisions that benefit the system. Take on debt. Buy things you can't afford on credit. Work jobs that don't build equity. And when you struggle, the system blames you. But you made the best choices with the information you were given. And you were deliberately given incomplete information. Then came the biggest scam, college. School conditioned you to believe success equals more school. The path is high school, college, good job, retirement. They made it automatic.
So you went. You were 18, your brain wasn't fully developed, and the system handed you loans you couldn't discharge in bankruptcy, with no guarantee of income and interest compounding immediately. You signed because school taught you to trust authority. Nobody walked you through what those numbers would feel like when the grace period ended. Nobody showed you how long it would take to pay off if your first job offer came in low. You believed the promise that it would all work out if you just followed the script. And here's the cruelest part. The system never loses. Colleges raise tuition year after year because students would just borrow more. You're the one exposed when it goes wrong. And when you're making $45,000 with $80,000 in debt, you blame yourself. You think you picked the wrong major, didn't network enough, didn't hustle hard enough, but the trap was set long before freshman orientation. Fast forward to now. You're out of school, but the programming is still running. Every time you think about asking for a raise, you feel like you need to justify it, like you're asking a teacher to bump your grade. Every time you consider starting a business, you hear, "What if you fail? What will people think?" That's the school conditioning. Fear of being wrong, need for external validation. You stay in jobs you hate because school taught you that quitting equals failure. You wait for promotion because school taught you that authority decides your value. You avoid financial risk because school taught you the safe path is the right path, even though that safe path of employee, paycheck, modest savings is actually the riskiest bet you can make. One layoff, one illness, one recession, and the whole thing collapses. But school trained you to see that as security and entrepreneurship as risk. The framework is backwards, and instead of questioning the system, you turn all of that frustration inward. That's the final piece of conditioning. So how do you break it? First, recognize that being good at school and being good at building wealth are opposite skill sets. School rewarded compliance and risk avoidance. Wealth rewards autonomy and calculated risk. If you were a straight A student who struggles financially, that's not proof you failed. It's proof the system worked exactly as designed. You have to retrain your brain. Give yourself permission to fail. School taught you that mistakes lower your value. Reality is the opposite. Every failure is information. Second, stop waiting for permission. You don't need approval to negotiate, change careers, or start a business. That urge to ask if it's okay, that's the raised hand reflex from 12 years of conditioning. Third, seek financial education the way you once chased good grades, but this time, you're not performing for a report card. Learn about assets, cash flow, tax strategy, compound growth. Learn the language of wealth school deliberately left out. And finally, stop measuring success by the school system's metrics. Stability isn't success, it's stagnation with a salary. School taught you to be an excellent employee in a system designed to keep you there. But you're not in school anymore. The bells don't control you. The grades don't define you. And the path they laid out isn't the only one option. It was just the only one they wanted you to see.